now live streaming on YouTube. Woo!
Yay! This is our first live show. We're so excited.
All right. Wow. So welcome to the Shamans Cave, and I'm Renee Barabo.
And I'm Sandra Ingerman.
Like, you need a lot of introduction, and we have thousands and millions of fans around the world. It's like such an honor to sit here and have these conversations together for me.
Yeah, well, we're two wise women and we have a lot to share, so it's exciting.
That's right. And we have, this is our first live one. We've done a couple of, did a couple of test runs, and then what we were noticing was that a lot of our conversation going on behind the scenes was just as compelling as what we were saying in our, our scheduled broadcast. So this is off the cuff. This is coming to you live, and we really hope you enjoy what we're going to be bringing to you. And more so for me, I hope that you get some new thought-provoking ideas to, to go forward in your life as you navigate these tumultuous winds.
Yeah, and we really also want to hear from you about what you are getting out of the show, and we will be talking a little bit about that later on how to let us know.
Right, and also if you're putting comments into the YouTube channel, right now we're here in a different platform, so it'd be a little hard for us to conversate and to respond to you. But trust me, I go through all the YouTube comments, and I will get back to you. So please keep the conversation lively and going while we're over here, learning how to dial all of these knobs. So today, Sandra, do you want to tell us what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah. Today, this particular session, I've planted a seed. Renee and I have planted a seed about this in our last session, and I'm so passionate. I am so interested in how shamans create change the reality that is happening for their community. And there are many different ways that they do this, of going into the energy. I keep talking about shamans are gardeners of energy, and they go into the energy and they reweave what's not working. They kind of pull it apart and weave through their ceremonies. Ceremonies, when you do them over time, they create building blocks that start to build the new structures that we want to start building. And one of the things is that shamans work with chants, and their chants are their creation stories. And the conversation that Renee and I have been having, and she's going to call in a win for us right now, is that the creation stories that we're chanting, because we are chanting stories throughout our day with our words and our thoughts and our daydreams, and we're chanting dismemberment stories. And look at what's happening to the fabric of reality. So what happens when enough of us start to join in together and learn over a couple of sessions of how we can start using vibration and ceremony as building blocks for that new fabric of reality that we're all wishing and we're ready to start creating. We're tired of just being in this dismemberment process. It's time to take action. And so, Renee, you came up with a win the other day. You pulled a win that we should be working with, and it's perfect for the topic that I just seeded.
Well, actually, let's talk about these wins for a second, because this win pulled me. I was on my wind walk the other night, and all of a sudden it popped in, I want airspace on your next call. And I'm there like, wow. So the wind that came up was Enlil. And I pull a lot of the same winds out of the wind bag all the time, but Enlil is not one that comes out for me a lot. And Enlil is the Sumerian wind god that was partially part of the separation between the oneness. And I was just thinking that, Sandra, you were just talking about that floating dream you had the other day about floating in the oneness, and how interesting that Enlil would come here, because Enlil and his brother, they are the people who in this mythology started the separation of good and evil, the contrast that we've been in. And so maybe we're at the end of the cycle of contrast and maybe coming back to that wholeness. So let's call into Enlil and see what kind of energy, what kind of information that this is going to change how we share our story today. You ready? So those of you at home who haven't heard the wind whistle, it's a wind whistle, and just kind of listen to and see if the vibration takes you somewhere. Did the leaves start blowing outside your window, or?
Well, when Renee and I were talking about this the other day, my God, all of a sudden, out of the blue, my trees just started blowing. And as soon as she finished talking about Endril, the trees just stopped. So it was one of those major synchronicities that we knew that we were on the right track. And Renee was explaining to me that Endril is actually the god of dismemberment in a lot of ways.
Yes, because Enlil, when he thought that the humans were becoming too noisy, he flooded the planet. And so that was the end of the civilization at Mesopotamia, which is now Iran, just so if you're looking for a geographical context. And so one of the things that even yesterday came up was we're getting ready to do this show, and all of a sudden I got this information just on my Google, like it knew what I was looking for next, was about how long do civilizations live? What is the cycle of a civilization? And so, are we at the winter of our civilization? Are we at the, late fall? Where are we in terms of, and Sandra, you talk a lot about it being a 4 billion year old planet that clearly goes on whether we're here or not to enjoy it.
Yeah, well, and that is actually something that the ancient ones who've been chatting to me a lot over this last year, chatting to me physically, they give me the information in my body, is how little time we're here for. Because when you look at a span of billions of years that the Earth has been around, you can really you really get a different sense of the little bit of time that we're here for. So, that's something interesting to think about. And the Sumerians they were tapped into, like the Egyptian cultures and some of the stories coming out of Atlantis and the Lemurians. They had highly developed technology. I mean, it's really amazing to look at that culture and what they actually had as technology. And I wasn't going to talk about this today, but the ancient Egyptians too, when I took 2 groups to Egypt back in the 1990s, and you're in these temples and you're by these incredible sculptures, you realize that some non-ordinary method was used to build this amazing landscape in Egypt, that people can go and be in sacred space with the gods and goddesses. And I journeyed to them and I asked them how they did that. And their response to me was, you have no idea what the word concentration means. And what that meant to me, because I understood what they were saying, they used their psychic senses and they used vibration to build. And that's really what we're trying to get to right now is, when is the dismemberment over? I mean, we're not in control of the universal forces and what our ego wants and our personality wants. But doesn't this seem like a time where so much breakdown is happening that if the spiritual community doesn't join together and start building these building blocks, when do we start seeing the rememberment, the re-engaging in life starting to happen again?
Such an interesting question. And, you know, and since we both are shamanic in nature, and we both know that there's a natural cycle to it, it's like, I don't know if you've gotten any insight from your guides, like where we are, you know, on the death cycle here. I mean, do we have to take it all the way down to the nubs before we can rebuild? Or, you know, I suppose if we really thought that, then we wouldn't be having these weekly conversations. Still, you know, we don't like the death and dismemberment part so well. So like, are we fully dismembered? I mean, I know last year for me, or the last couple of years, it was really disheartening for me to see such a crack in the spiritual community. You know, I thought we had done so much to become united, and really it was like a falsehood. There was not, you know, people were attacking each other, and, you know, and all of a sudden politics got in the way of spirituality, and that I know is part of that dismemberment experience too.
Well, I think what's happening is, and some people have been responding to the posts that I've been putting out on Facebook, where I have these amazing experiences in the middle of the night, is that so many people are tuned in to the wrong frequency. Because we're tuned into the frequency of fear right now. That's what our ego and personality is tuning into. And when you move out of ego and personality, which is what shamanism is all about, shamanism is about stepping out of your humanness so that you rise to the vibration of the creative forces of the universe. And you can become that master gardener because you know how to work with energy, because you're living in that higher vibration and you know how to work with the energy. You're tuned into the right frequency. That's how shamans use their chanting and their ceremonies and their prayers and their preparation work. It's all to get tuned into the right frequency. And so I saw the same thing as you, Renee, but I'm still seeing it. I'm going, my God, what happened to the spiritual community? All of a sudden, everybody's acting like the political parties, going after each other. And I think what's happening is, because of all the online and devices and technology, we're not doing our drumming every day, our ceremonies every day, that will tune us into a different frequency, where then we can join together and start reweaving the new patterns as much as we can do. Because, as Renee, you're saying, we don't know if this dismemberment process is over with. But the guidance that I get is, it's time for us to start re-engaging in life and to start building a different fabric of reality, because we're so stuck in ego and personality and tuning into the wrong frequency, we're just going along with this dismemberment process.
And I saw something yesterday that I want to read, because I think you're going to love this. Sociologist Elise Boulding said, modern society is suffering from temporal exhaustion. If one is mentally out of breath all the time from dealing with the present, there's no energy left for imagining the future. And what's really crazy about finding that yesterday was, I just wrote that. I started writing a blog, and I wrote in my blog, gee, when I finished Winds of Spirit, I was out of breath. I mean, I was over the finish line, gray like a runner and out of breath. And so when I saw that yesterday, I was thinking, well, how can Sandra and I help you get over this temporal exhaustion of, being in that fear all the time? Because, why I'm not seeing it so much is I think I already moved. I moved away from it. It's not on my timeline. I don't allow it on my timeline. And, I live in this world of perpetual, hey, we got this.
Yeah. Yeah. I have that reality piece. My ego and personality comes in and judges. But then, I spend most of my time in the spiritual world, because we're robbing of ourselves of the richness of life. We're putting ourselves in this two-dimensional life where when, we just get tuned into that fear and we're on the wrong frequency, we're not opening up to these unbelievable, there's so many different dimensions of life that we can experience. And so what happened for me, to go back to how we build and how we can start this process of rebuilding, even though we don't know where we are in the dismemberment work, is I started teaching a practice called transfiguration. And any of you who have worked with me or who read my material know that. But for those of you who don't, at some point, Renee and I will do a show on that. And it has to do with just finding your light source that lives within. And I started teaching this practice around 2000. And what I started to notice was that if we don't know who source is to us, because in our culture, we're given this creation story that a lot of us, we don't attach to because of the way we grew up and how religion was pushed on us. If we don't know who our creator is, and if we don't know who source is, how do we possibly know how to find source inside of ourselves? And so in my books, Medicine for the Earth and in Walking in Light, and in some of my other books, I really, a very important practice I put into those books is before you can move forward with alchemy, doing the alchemical processes that we can do with shamanism as gardeners of energy, you have to be connected to source. And that was why shamans spontaneously got dismembered, was to put them back in connection with source. And that's where their magical abilities came from. So one way is to dismember and then you experience source. Another way is to journey to learn who is source, who is the creator to you, not from a book that you read, but who is the creator to you. And that was an important piece of the transfiguration work. But now what I've been sharing with Renee is we need to bring back that piece of understanding the creator and source before we start learning how to do the chants of the creation stories that build back new structures of form for us.
Absolutely. And for me, I was chasing after that for so many years until I finally understood that the wind wasn't a metaphor, that the wind was holding my life in a way that was really felt, wow, I don't have to do it myself anymore. Or, I still have to do a lot, trust me, but I don't have to, that I was being held for the first time in my life. And that was such a wonderful experience because of all the training we've had and all the bad rap that God's gotten, or, how religion failed us, or when we saw, the children being molested, or all of these other things, that was a different reality from, what was the true source and how do we experience that for ourselves? And working in addiction, I see that, especially our young men, 20 to 30, who are, filling up the addiction treatment centers, they've lost that connection. They're lost. We have a whole generation that's lost. And so I think it's our responsibility, not even like a good idea. It's if you've been studying shamanism for 25 years and new age practices, whatever they are, it's our responsibility to offer a light to, the people who are now not knowing where to look, and as the institutions are falling down around them. And I think that's been the big push that I've been telling people. It's time to go back to your communities. Your neighbors need you. Your bigger neighborhood needs you. And I think this has everything to do with what we're doing, talking about, in how we're going to create these new strands for reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Shamanism was always a community process. It was always a community because the community was one organism. And so to bring that back again, that your community that you live in is an organism, and you're just an organ, you're a body part, and you can help, strengthen the rest of the organism. And it's our responsibility to do that, because we don't want to see our communities getting dismembered either, because they hold us in a particular way. And it was interesting for me, Renee, listening to you talk about being held by the wind, because I don't have the same connection. I have a different connection with the wind than you, but it's such an ally for me. And I remember one day I was lying in bed whining about how nobody cares about me and I'm all alone in the world and I have no support from the spirits anymore. I was in one of my whining days. We all get there. And the wind came through so strongly and started yelling at me and said, "We keep telling you we're right behind you and we're with you, and you keep insulting us by saying that you're all alone and nobody cares, and we're right there." And so we don't understand the spiritual richness that is around us. And the exponential side of that, Renee, is the population you're talking about, who you're seeing in the addiction center, where there's absolutely no connection. And most of us who are listening, we have the connection, but we're not building the strong enough relationships to feel it as if we're walking it every second of our life. That connection is always with us. We're walking with the wind. We're walking with the gods and goddesses. We're walking with the power animals and guardian spirits and the mushrooms and the hidden ones and the hidden people. We're all walking together, and we've lost that. And I think, a real key to that, of how shamanic cultures held their morals and their way of life. And this is what I found in doing my research on creation stories. When I first started writing Medicine for the Earth, I read, oh my God, creation stories from every single culture around the world. Is it gave them a sense of how to create and how to connect. It gave them all of that. That's why their creation stories were so important to them, was that's how they connected to life.
Well, next week, when we continue this conversation, what I've discovered through the wind work is that there's wind dynamics of creation, and that I've kind of started to map them out with my students about how we create each and every single time, working with a wind, and not an individual wind like an Enlil, but the dynamic winds. And so I'll certainly bring those into our conversation next week. And that's what Enlil is about too, is about aligning to the hidden forces, to your fate and fortune and nature. So I think Sandra's got some kind of a exercise that we're going to do here to get us started on this route. And I have a feeling, Sandra, we're going to be on the subject of creation probably more than just another week.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big one, and yes, I'll start us off on a practice, but this is really important work for you to start to work with on your own. And I actually, I did an exercise with when I was part of, I was doing a heart study with the University of Michigan Integrated School of Medicine to see how some of the work that we're sharing here would help people who suffered a heart attack. And most of my group was fundamentalist Christian. They showed up with their Bibles. Really interesting. Everything I said, they looked in their Bible first to make sure I didn't say anything against their religion. So I had them learn their creation story. And surprisingly, they didn't come up with the same creation story that they had learned in church. And we did it through automatic writing. And I'm talking about this because this is a way for you to work between now and our next show. And I will do a little exercise, but we don't have enough time to go deep enough where you're going to need to go deeper into this, where you can take some paper and a pencil. And this is how I teach people to do it. Put on some nice spiritual music that doesn't have words to it. Write down that you want to meet your creator. And for our purposes, you want to learn the sound of your creator. So you want to meet your creator, source, God, the goddess, the creator of the universe, whatever phrase works for you. And then as you listen to the music, just write whatever story starts coming up, and let your hand move and let your body start to sound that sound of creation, because this is what we're going to be using for building a new reality, creating those new building blocks. It has to come from vibration. And how shamans did it in indigenous cultures was they sang and chanted each building block for a new reality through using vibration of sound. The ancient Egyptians did it through their words, which they called heka, which every time you said a word, the vibration actually manifested an actual form. So let's do a bit of a journey, and just close your eyes and take some deep breaths. And let's all imagine ourselves traveling to a beautiful place in nature where we can just take a few minutes at the end of our show to reflect. And as you experience yourself, seeing yourself, feeling yourself, hearing where you are, smelling the smells, feel your ego and personality dropping away. And feel yourself entering into a spiritual state of consciousness where you're no longer bringing the vibration of fear, but together we're all tuning in to a higher vibration of creation. And ask for some divine being to come and join you. It might be a god or goddess or an ancient one from another culture. And ask them to show you a scene of how vibration can actually create form. How shamans are gardeners of energy and can reweave form that's been dismembered, can reweave the threads, and can visualize that energy moving into a form that creates harmony, creates a community, creates a life that we all want to live in. Let's just take a moment of reflection to be inspired that this is possible. If this wasn't enough time for you, just take a bottle and put some seeds in it and use it as a rattle. Or if you have a drum, or you can take 2 sticks and just repeat this exercise, asking a divine being to show you how vibration actually turns into form, how we use sound and vibration to build. Just see the scene. You're not going to get the method yet. Just see how it works. Get a sense in your cells how it works so that we could work more consciously together in the shows that follow. But for now, you have your assignment of writing out your creation story, either through automatic writing or through a journey or taking a walk in nature, learning about your creator and the sound of creation, being inspired by the practice that we just did of just even being shown the potential of our work. So at this point, we turn around and retrace our steps on the path and come back into the room that we're journeying in. And we open our eyes, making a commitment that we do the ceremonial work that we need to do, as shamans have done for tens of thousands of years, to step into a frequency of love and light and harmony, and step out of the dense frequency of fear, destruction, and separation. Welcome back, everybody. We have a lot to look forward to in our coming shows.
Wow. Usually I kind of sit here and you know, kind of tend to what's going on here and there, but all of a sudden there was this energetic moving in my body, and it showed me one of the wind dynamics, which we're going to talk about next week. But there was this movement of like a tornado starting, like that movement of how they start wide, you know, they gain force and intensity and things as they go. So I'll be curious to see where that's taking me, for sure, or taking us, all of us.
Yeah. And so it would be really wonderful if you made some comments about what you took away from the show. What was one thing, you know, because our shows are short, we're planting seeds, and some of the work you're just going to have to do on your own. We'll do as much as we can together, but some of the work you have to do on your own. So what's something that you took away that you can plant into your inner landscape that's going to create a whole new vibration in you, where you're going to be able to re-engage with a community of all these wonderful shamanic practitioners, and join Renee and I in stepping into a different frequency and using ceremony to build love.
That's great. And if you feel comfortable, please put it down here in the comment section below. Tell us, you know, what's your takeaway from here, or if you like a little bit more of a closed space, come over to the Shamans Cave over on Facebook, which it is an open group, but it's still small enough that you can share. And then if you want updates on our show, go to shamanstv.com. And we always, after we record the show and I do all the processing, I put it up there so you can, watch it again and again and grab out the meditations and things. So Sandra, I can't believe we're already at the end of our time.
I know, it's amazing. Time goes really fast, especially when we're conversing with each other, because you just have a real wealth of information. And I have stories to share from my past, and that could be a half an hour right there. So we'll keep putting in practices that take us all deeper into the work. But we just really enjoy being able to do the show together, and we really enjoy having you as a circle that we're working with as a community, so that we can go back and inspire our communities, which are a whole body that we want to keep strong. So blessings to everybody, and thank you for listening, and please remember to subscribe.
Thank you, Sandra, and we'll see everyone next week.